So it's been a really fun journey. We've talked about some of the big moments that have come out of it, like our first conference, that first kind of world tour. We didn't call it that then, but I remember it fondly as a world tour. What about ringing the bell at the New York Stock Exchange? So we did that twice. Talk about that. What was that like when you got the message saying, hey, you can come do this, and that whole experience?
So I'll admit, I'm ambitious. Ringing the bell at the New York Stock Exchange, it was already a lifelong dream. And so to have that opportunity was just incredible. And I personally had one of my really pivotal moments when we were on the floor of the New York Stock Exchange. So we had just gotten to ring the bell, and we're there on the ground taking photos, high-fiving, giving each other hugs. And I kind of look around, and as we're taking photos, should we take a professional photo? And one of our board members at the time, Lisa Calhoun, said to me, Alaina, you are changing the face of leadership. Be yourself. And those words have stuck with me. And I live that now.
That's amazing. I also have to tell you a little secret. So the second time we rang the bell, well, you know this because you gave me this big surprise, but one of the things that I was completely shocked by was when you said to me, I did it last time. I've already pushed the button. Why don't you ring it this time? And I thought that was really cool. And I think that that notion of shared leadership and sharing opportunities is something that our community lives. But a lot of times when you're in a place where there's this sort of big moment, people forget to make space, but I definitely appreciated that. And it was really fun and something I didn't expect. I was over the moon just to even be on the floor, let alone actually pushing the button. So that was pretty cool thing that we got to do with Women Who Code. And I hope all the people that were standing up there with us, I think I shared that push with Erica. I think we both pushed the bell. So pushing the bell was really cool, but I hope that other people look back and feel really proud of that moment.
Yeah, and I shared my push with Zasmin Montes de Oca, who's a fellow co-founder of Women Who Code. And yeah, so making space doesn't take away from your leadership, from your experience. It adds to it because you're on it together.
Speaking of leadership, so we are women in these positions of leadership, and I would love to talk a little bit about what it's like running an organization as women while our lives are still happening outside of this, this day-to-day space. We still have families to care for and other things going on. I'd love to hear a little bit about what that's been like for you, how it's changed over time as your family has changed and your kind of responsibilities outside of Women Who Code has changed. And how do you tell that story, when you're talking to others and they ask, what is it like to be a woman in leadership, which we always get asked.
Yeah. So I struggled with it in the early days of Women Who Code. I would say to myself, your goal isn't to become a software engineer. How can you lead a company that is focused on the technology to leadership path? And so I had all of this imposter syndrome for myself and struggled to say that I'm the CEO. So I forced myself to do it. Every time I got on a stage, I forced myself to say, hi, I'm Alaina Percival, CEO of Women Who Code. And it was incredibly uncomfortable until one time the audience, as soon as I said it, like erupted and clapping. And, it wasn't the end of my talk, when you might expect someone. And so I said, oh, maybe they're okay with me being up here. And I also had to tell myself, if you're willing to take a step forward, we're bringing all these people, this mission, all of these things that are incredibly important forward with me. And if I don't do that, I'm holding myself and everyone else back. And it was absolutely true. The minute I was willing to take that step myself, everyone else was able to take the step as well.
Yeah, I remember having a lot of walking meetings and unpacking imposter syndrome, not only for that, but I think that just happens, right? We have all of these ideas about what we're doing and if they're okay and what that looks like.
Mm-hmm.
I have to admit, even just last month, my wife actually called me out for this. Thank you to my wife if she hears this recording. Called me out because I was sitting at the table with a software engineer and we were just meeting for the first time. He's kind of like loosely related, like through her family to me. And so he introduced himself as a software engineer, and I said something like, I'm a product manager, not meaning that was my title, but that's what I did. And it was just about not owning that kind of executive space. And I think imposter syndrome creeps in all kind of ways. And she later asked me, why did you do that? Why didn't you just say who you are? Mm-hmm. And I kind of said, I just didn't have the energy for it. And I think that's something that happens for women in leadership and maybe for other genders also. But sometimes you just don't have the energy to carry your confidence forward. And that's reality. But I think on a day-to-day basis, I think leading this organization has been one of the greatest honors of my life. And the people that I've met along the way and the teams that have come together around this movement have taught me so much about what it takes to lead and organize and coordinate and step back and make space in terms of getting work done.
Yeah.
Is there anything that you in your personal life would have done differently if you weren't busy co-founding and building an organization?
I think one of the benefits of being part of Women Who Code, and you and I getting to help make decisions around the way things are inside the organization. I mean, certainly anytime you choose something, you're choosing not to do many other things, but we've also had the opportunity and have the opportunity at this company to really support other aspects of our lives in the organization. And, we've had a culture of being able to be remote. I know I am deeply passionate about our full international community and not being, either Bay Area or US centric with our community. And, that's part of my core values as well. And having a global perspective. And I know that you're bringing that as well. I would say, if I wasn't doing Women Who Code, all of the other ideas that I come up with or find myself spending time on, they're mission driven. They're often inclusion focused, supporting diverse women. All of these are, part of the path and the career and the steps that I've taken and really chosen in many of the opportunities that I've had in my career.
One thing that I think is really fun for both of us is that we both were pregnant at different Connect conferences. And one of the things you talked about, that remote culture, I think intentionally building culture has been so important in making this organization what it is. One of the things I realized early on is that when in becoming a mom is that often I heard all the statistics, right? That mothers often don't have the support and space they need at a workplace. And that could be true of any parent. And we hear that a lot about moms. And one of the things I made a commitment to was is that my daughter's first, right? Full stop. And I know, Alaina, a lot of my journey. She was 7 years in the making, right? So it's a sheer miracle that she's even on this earth. I definitely am not putting her second to anything. And so as much as I love my career and love my job and love this organization, she has to come first. And one of the things I realized early on is I could set the tone. Which is pretty cool. That's a pretty cool place to be. So, if she runs in fact, if she runs in this interview, you all will meet her. Like, she gets to say hello. And I wasn't sure how that would be received by the world. In this organization, it's been received really well. And I think people have appreciated it, or at minimum tolerated it. But I think most people have appreciated it. But the first time I was on a call with a partner, where I really saw that come into action through this new parenting lens was that this woman, she was a partner at a big company. So presumably this company supports women. They have great parental leave. They have great parental benefits. She's sitting there and her kids are just like screaming in the other room. They really needed her. And she just kept apologizing. And I actually stopped the meeting and I was like, it's okay. Like, I'm a mom too. Just whatever you need. If you need to take a pause, if we need to reschedule this, if you want them to come sit on your lap, whatever. And she said, she paused and someone else said, thank you for saying that, because she was also a mom struggling, but she was on mute and we couldn't hear her kids. And so it's really amazing watching how, when you're in a position of leadership, if you can just be human and bring yourself forward, other people will follow and they really appreciate it. And I think for me, that's been one of the biggest learning moments in being a leader of this organization, is that you can redefine leadership and you don't have to do it the way you've always seen it. You can actually just do things differently.
Yeah. I think that's great to point out is, we are in this time of mass disruption and we shouldn't build it back the same. We should build it back to be more inclusive, to be more human, to better respect our lives and recognize that we are whole humans. And I love that you took that opportunity and that leadership to make that change. And I hope that gets carried into that company. But I know that one of the things that's very important for us in the organization is to live leadership. And leadership doesn't come with your title, doesn't come with my title. Everyone has the opportunity to live leadership, to lead by example. And that's one of Women Who Code's core values. And I think what you're talking about there in that instance actually really speaks to that value.
Yeah, I agree 100%. One of the programs, so you're describing living leadership. So one of the programs that was really exciting to work on with Women Who Code was building a leadership model for technologists. And that program has been evolving probably from day one. I know when I joined, you talked a lot about how you would see volunteers not only becoming leaders in this community, but leaders in the industry. And then fast forward a couple of years later, we put together this kind of scratch back of the napkin design of a leadership model, and actually have a photo of it on a whiteboard mapped out. I know that, I love my whiteboards. Anybody that's ever worked with me in person knows how much I love thinking in marker. I think it just activates a different part of your brain. But I have a photo of the whiteboard where we were like, if everyone in technology had this kind of mindset, the industry would be better, the world would be better. And fill in the blank with this, right? So we had everything mapped out on this whiteboard of all these different perspectives and angles and things. And with the help of Natasha Hendrick out of one of our current advisors, then volunteers, really formulated a technology leadership model. And so that was really exciting to be part of. We debuted that in Berlin. Gosh, has it been 5 years? That doesn't sound right. 4 years? Something like that. Anyway, I feel like in COVID time has just like frozen. I don't know how many years it's been since before 2020. Anyway, it was before that. We debuted it in person, and it's been really interesting watching that evolve. And it's exactly what you said, right? You can lead from where you are. You can lead from every level, and you can practice leadership every day, which is the only way to really become a leader and be a leader. You don't have to become a leader. You can lead right now, right where you are, and practice that leadership. It's kind of like yoga. If you practice it, you get good at it. If leadership is like that, you don't check off a box and say you're a leader. You have to actually practice it. And so there've been all these great moments that have gotten us to this point in these last 10 years. We haven't talked at all about the last 2 years, right? Since COVID hit, we've had to completely transition everything. What's that been like from your perspective?
Yeah. So Women Who Code in January of 2020 was an organization that did 2,000 in-person events per year. And, the beginning of March, that came to a dramatic halt. But we very quickly were able to completely digitize our programming. And we'd been testing out for about a year, a little over a year, introducing digital content. And so we had that small test, that small foundation, but we were able to just completely pivot and hands up to the team and the volunteers going through that full transition, retraining volunteers to be in-person event experts to digital event experts. And the amazing kind of outcomes that have come from that is, we're producing the same number of digital technical events that we were previously in person, but now you don't have to be available in New York City or Berlin or London or Bangalore, during that specific time period. You can join in from anywhere around the world. And because it's digital, we're recording these events and then putting them onto our on-demand database on Women Who Code's YouTube channel. So now, even if you weren't available in that moment, you're still able to go back and access these incredible resources for the Women Who Code community. And, what we saw is just even in the first half of the year that we had over a year of life of learning moments for the Women Who Code community, because we had, this is the first 6 months of 2021, we had well over 100,000 participants, and all of those participants were cumulatively, participating for over an entire year's worth of time. And so when we say we're the largest and most active, we are incredibly active. We have an incredibly active community, and that just speaks to the need that's out there and the thirst for knowledge and the need for continuous learning, and the need for community as you participate in that.
Yeah, and it's been amazing staying connected virtually through this whole time. And again, it just takes me back to our community, because I remember having these quick community check-ins when things started closing and saying, well, what do you want? How are we going to move forward? And there was this resounding, we want to be connected. And there were for sure people that said, and also I'm now leading Zoom school at home, and I'm now, we're working remotely, and I'm figuring out my home office, and I need a pause. And that was okay too. But we had this resounding, I want to stay connected. And it's been really just amazing to watch the team and the community pull together over this last kind of 18 months or so. So now we're at today. What about looking forward? What do you see for the future of Women Who Code and the impact that you envision for this organization going forward?
Yeah. So Women Who Code will continue to do what we do best in the world, which is community, providing technical programming, focusing on accessibility with our programming. All of our events are either free or scholarship accessible. And what we are also really leaning in on, as Joey mentioned, is around leadership. Since women are often promoted based on their experience, whereas men are often promoted based on their potential, that first level of leadership creates a big gap in gender representation. And so what we really look to do over the next 5 years is give space for women to practice leadership, to overcome this bias that exists for them, so that we can see that gap start to close and see more women make it into that first level of leadership and continue to excel throughout their careers.
Yeah, and that work is so incredibly important. You talk about representation in the industry, and just watching that as you kind of rise through the industry in your career, you just see that representation fall off, and that is just compounded by intersectionality. As you see diverse women entering their career, you see a big drop off, right? As people rise and in terms of staying in the industry. And so I think continuing to inspire diverse women to excel in technology careers, continuing to push to support women to rise as technologists and leaders in this space is just critical to doing that bigger work around closing the gap, right? Closing the gap in terms of inclusion, in terms of representation, in terms of wage, all of the things that we know can make this industry even better and provide really lucrative opportunities for women around the world.
Yeah, I think what you're bringing forward is so important, and it's leading me right into the next big piece that Women Who Code is going to be pushing forward for celebrating our entire 10 years. And that's that we are going to be introducing a rebrand for Women Who Code. And the rebrand is it's a refresh, but it's also just really leaning into our core, and inclusion at the core is one of our core values. It's always been there. But what we're going to be doing over the next 10 years is elevating our advocacy voice, because we know, and what we've seen over the past 10 years is that if you do not feel safe in your life, you cannot focus on your livelihood. And so bridging that is going to be an important element of Women Who Code's voice and support over the next 10 years.
Absolutely. And in closing today, what do you want folks to know? How can people get involved if they want to support this movement, if they want to support this mission? What can people do?
Yeah, so please visit us at womenwhocode.com. We have incredible programs. As I mentioned, all of our events are free or scholarship accessible, but we are celebrating 10 years, and we're celebrating it with our first ever major donation match. So Art Blocks has offered to match the next $100,000 in donations to Women Who Code. We already have a commitment from one of the artists on Art Blocks to help support this. Steen Art Blocks, thank you so much for your support. It only costs $27 for us to provide free programming for an entire year for a Women Who Code member. So every $27 that you donate to Women Who Code helps us to be able to keep a woman in the tech industry, make it to more senior positions, help her to live leadership, to have inclusion at the core, and to focus on Women Who Code's vision of seeing diverse women better represented as engineers and technology leaders.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Alaina, for spending some time with me today, reminiscing about the last 10 years. Happy teal-iversary.
Happy teal-iversary to you as well.
Thank you. And I look forward to seeing where the next 10 years takes us.
Yes.
Take care, everyone.
Take care. Thank you, Joey.